Hey guys, welcome to another episode of American Grit. I'm JD. Well, we got an exciting episode for you guys. We got a need for speed on today's episode. We got an organization that really puts their efforts into the ground. You know, we here at American Grit, we talk about boots on the ground efforts. Like, this is literally where the rubber meets the road. Thanks, man. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Daniel Johnson. How you doing, brother?
Doing well, thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for providing this space for veterans, man. This is wild. A lot of people get involved with like run clubs or micro brews, but you're giving dudes like a throttle.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Right. So can you tell us just from like a high level, what is Battle Scarred Motorsports and what is its mission? Why do you guys exist?
It's pretty simple. So it's Battle Scarred Motorsports, and we're a local nonprofit that basically just takes veterans and first responders racing, and we call it adrenaline therapy through racing.
Why racing? Did you grow up racing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I grew up racing, and so it was just part of my life. And then I always raced. And
Like, did you grow up watching somebody?
no, yes and no. So when I was young, I moved to live with my dad. My parents were divorced, and my dad was like a true hot rodder from all get out, if you will, you know. And he had a friend that was racing go-karts, and he was like, "Hey man, bring your kid out." And I was like 11, and that's where it started. And then as I got into my teenage years, we did that, and then obviously the military came, but I stayed racing, and then I've always just picked it up from my dad's side and just stayed with it, and that's kind of all I do now besides work is go to racing next, you know.
Are we talking like street racing, like track racing?
Mostly
like
track
dirt
bikes.
bikes?
So mostly like as a kid it was go-kart racing, then it was dirt bike riding, and then as a young adult, kind of like a lot of dirt car racing is what my son and I now are like really big into, and then I'm a hot rodder from Get Out as well too, so I have a few hot rods that we cruise around the street, and we kind of do some street racing too, but can't really talk about that.
Hey.
There's a movie called Hot Rod. You used to watch it.
Coming to the stage. Hot rod.
Nice jumps. So,
Any good memories? Were you competitive? Did you destroy everybody? Did you suck at it? What'd that look like?
won multiple championships as a kid. Like my dad's house, I have a whole room full of trophies. We were extremely competitive. Like our life consisted of it. Like we didn't do anything else but that. So it was like go to work, go race, go to work, go race. And I didn't play sports as a kid. I didn't play football. It's like some of my friends were like, "Hey, play football," and I'm like, "No, not really, not interested in it."
Y'all slow. Y'all are too slow.
Exactly. And so I guess like where I'm at with Battle Scar, considering like we call it adrenaline therapy, like even as a kid I was always into that adrenaline, of like why do I want to chase somebody with a football? Like that's kind of boring,
It doesn't really compare either. Like you gotta, racing is a team sport because it takes a team to do that. But really, like the effort of the driver is what you're kind of focused on.
Correct.
Versus in football, you can do all the training to be ready to do some blocking, but if the receiver sucks and doesn't catch the ball, what's the fucking point? Like,
right, exactly.
What's the point? Nah, I'm good, dog. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I'm originally from Lafayette, Louisiana. Just a Cajun kid. Grew up out there, and then my dad lived in North Carolina. He had remarried and moved to North Carolina, so I lived out there until I was in my teenage years, and then it kind of played its course, and then I moved back to Louisiana, and then that's obviously when 9/11 happened, and when 9/11 happened, I was already signed up to join the Marine Corps. I had signed up in like June, and I was 17, and I needed to wait till August for my 18th birthday. So they kind of had me pushed out to like 2002 to join the Marine Corps. And then obviously 9/11 happened, and I had just turned 18, and the recruiter called, and he's like, "Yeah, you're shipping out in December, bro." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so
Green light, go.
right.
Fuck.
So that's kind of how that happened, and even when I was in the Marine Corps, I was still racing. I was still competing at local dirt tracks, going to my dad's house on weekends that I wasn't somewhere else. And
interesting, because like when you know when you're in the military, or like when, like if you're not part of the bees, you're not part of the bees. So if you're going home to do something else and leaving your family every weekend, like, did the guys ever give you shit? I mean, they'll never understand because they have their head down doing something else. But like,
well, I guess I got lucky because I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and I was only 4 hours away from my dad's house. So it was in that window that when they'd call Libo on Friday, I could make the Friday night race and the Saturday night race, clean all my stuff up Sunday, and by lunchtime Sunday, I could go back home. I could go back to base. You know, like I said, when we wasn't deployed, but when we were deployed, it was like, yeah, you're just not doing anything but, you know, either doing a workup for a deployment or deploying, you know?
yeah, that's a good adaptive therapy, especially during that time. I mean, shit was hot.
Yeah.
So you're in the Marine Corps, right? I love that you had that outlet. You had two. I mean, one would say two adrenaline therapies, because you got trigger therapy and then you got throttle therapy.
Yeah, it was very funny, like, because I remember, like, my dad and then would ask, like, so what are you doing? Like, you know, they were very curious to, you know, what I was doing in the Marine Corps. And, you know, you would tell them and they were like, you did what? And you're like, oh, yeah, we were over here doing this. We were, you know, just practicing and sitting in the field all week and digging holes and kind of not doing nothing, you know? But you really were. And then, like, you know, when you get to country, like, you know, Iraq or whatever, you're like, man, I'm glad they really taught us all this stuff, you know? So it was.
Did you know that you were so how long did you serve for? And did you know that you wanted to just do that and get out? Like, how was transition even?
Okay, so yeah, I did 4 years, you know, 2 combat tours in Iraq. I wanted to stay in. My mom, not so much. You know, a lot of trauma happened in that. I ended up, you know, losing a brother to, you know, opiates. So I was kind of like one of her only kids. Oh, I have a sister as well. But my mom was like, man, come on, let's really rethink this, that, and other. And I was like, okay. And so, you know, at that age, you're still very pliable. You know, you're kind of like trying to please everybody at the same sentence. I knew I really enjoyed the Marine Corps, did really well at it, you know, got out as a corporal. And, you know, in the Marine Corps, especially in the 03 field, the cutting score was high, like to gain rank, right? So, like, I remember it was like 2,300, 2,400 cutting score as an 03, where like some of the admin guys were like 1,1500s on the cutting score, which basically, when I was in as a Lance Corporal, you could do your MCIs and you had a 1,500 cutting score, you know?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, you know, obviously your PFT goes into effect of that. And, you know, being an infantry Marine, like, I think damn near all of us were 300s. And if you wasn't a 300, like first class, or you were damn near close to it, you know?
And if you weren't, you were a sack of shit.
I wouldn't say that. You were.
As an Army guy, I could say that. I was a sack of shit. So.
Right. You were just kind of like not meeting the standard of everybody. But it was weird because even some of those bigger guys that, let's say they couldn't do the 18-minute 3-mile run, they could do it in like 20 minutes. So they wasn't very far off, you know, even though they were kind of bigger. So it was like, you know, you definitely missed that side of the ball, so to speak, you know, like when you look back on today's life. But I don't miss running every day like that.
So you don't want to go running with me tomorrow?
No, I don't. Like I told you, I won't.
You get out, right? You decided to get out. What'd you do? Did you get right back into racing?
Oh yeah, I never missed a beat. Never missed a beat. And so stupid. So like I get out, you know, I'm married to my kid's mom, like right at a year. And you know, it's like you look back at it now, you're like, damn, you're still so young. You're like 22, you know, and you're like, all right, what am I gonna do? And so like I had a few jobs that just really sucked. Like I went to work at a car dealership, like, because I mean I really didn't have a trade. You know, I didn't want to be a police officer, especially in the town that I lived in. It just was small. It was just like, I don't know. I just didn't find it to be cool. And you know, no offense to anyone that was. It just wasn't for me. And so I worked at the car dealership for like almost 2 years, and you know, I learned, you know, how to deal with people, how to do sales, whatever. And you know, I was working with, you know, part-time with another guy doing disaster cleanup work, and that's kind of where I landed, you know, running a demolition company now, and we get to tear up shit and have fun all day, so it's kind of like not even really going to work, so it's kind of like a Marine Grunt's freaking party, you know, every day.
How was that transition for you, like coming out of the Marine Corps back into civilian life? Like, that's a tough transition. We've all done it.
Yeah, so like that's really cool. Like, it wasn't cool at the time. Like, it probably took me 10 years to just really figure this shit out. And people are like, "What took so long?" And I'm like, "Well, do you really want to really dive into that?"
How much time you got?
Like, you go to the VA, they want to load you down with dope, and you don't even really know who you are anymore. So you're just kind of like sitting there in space, and then you add alcohol, depressant to dependency to go with it. It's like, I mean,
It's a vicious cocktail.
time fucking just leaves,
Yeah.
and then you wake up one day and you're like, dude, I'm 33, 30. I was 34 years old when I finally figured out what the hell I was doing in my life, and I was like, man, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even transitioned yet. Like, I still feel that I'm in the combat zone, but I'm sitting here at home and the thoughts are racing through my mind, but I'm not really speaking about it because I'm loaded full of Wellbutrin, and I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. We talking about, your thoughts racing and all that. You're in a job that you don't really care for, so insert your passion for Battle Scarred Motorsports.
Yeah. Okay. So when I met Brian Check, the CEO of Battle Scarred, I was going through, like, I was probably about 2 years through sobriety. I was, it was still a struggle, and I was racing. I had just went through like a really nasty divorce with my kid's mom. And, I was just, battling those day-to-day tasks of keeping my 50% custody with my kids and keep my relationship healthy with my kids, going to therapy and stuff like that. And a really good friend of mine introduced me to Battle Scarred, and he said, "Hey, these guys are having a podcast. They're looking for some combat, veterans to come talk to their little thing." And it wasn't really a podcast. Sorry, Brian. That was kind of weird. We were all on the phone looking at each other on Zoom, which was odd. So I was like, okay. And all these guys raced, and I started listening to what they were doing. And so Brian lived about 30 minutes from me, and he was still on active duty, stationed in New Orleans. And he invited me over, and they had the '79 Camaro we call Wild Boar there, and he's like, "Man, we're just really struggling with this car," and blah, blah. And that car was in my wheelhouse because, it's what we used to dirt car race years ago. And I was like, "Oh, this car's very easy to work on." And that's how it started. Like, I didn't want any, I don't know if I wanted any part of BSM or not. I just wasn't looking to follow them, so to speak. But I was willing to help them. Like, okay, what can I do to help you guys? So I would help them with the car. And then I remember they went racing in Colorado, which was a fucking shit show. And he was calling me, telling me about it. And I was like, yeah, the air's a little thin up there compared to Louisiana. Like, you got to know what you're doing up there. And we talking about that. And I don't know, he invited me. It's kind of cool because, like, I was actually dating my wife at the time. Like we were like dating. Like, we wasn't even like really
married yet, yeah.
No, it wasn't even really that serious. And so Brian was like, "Hey, we're going to race this weekend at Road Atlanta." He's like, "Would you be interested in coming to participate?" And I was like, "How much?" And he's like, "No, I got you. Just come on." And he's like, "Bring your girlfriend." I was like, "All right." So me and Christy and one of my really good friends, we call Uncle Billy, that's been racing with me forever, we went up there, and I had like this really good time. And it was just a bunch of little, crayon eaters like myself and a few Air Force guys. And like, everybody just chilled and got along, and everybody was racing. And I spent more time working on that piece of shit car than I did anything else. And I looked at Brian. I said, "Hey, Brian, I'm bringing this car home with me." I was like, "This car ain't going home with you." And he's like, "What you mean?" I was like, "Don't y'all got a race in a month in New Orleans?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I can get it running. And like, just let me have it for a little bit." And he's like, "Okay, we don't know what we're doing with it. Take it." So that's what really started me with BSM was that car. Like, and I was connected to just, at first, just serving. Like I didn't know that I was trying to serve. I was just trying to help.
Yeah,
And,
it wasn't forced or anything.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was, and that's like, even to this day, like, that's like a huge thing with us at BSM is that, like, everything's so natural when these guys come to us. Like, we're not forcing nothing. It's like, hey, bro, you want to try this? All right, we're going to give you everything you need to drive this. Count your fingers, count your toes. At the end of the day, that's how many you need to have, from start to finish. And, we'll teach them how to drive it and the safety stuff. And I won't bore you with all that. But, we get a lot of, brand new guys that have never done this. But, so that's kind of how I got started with Battle Scarred. And then we did the NOLA event, short for New Orleans, call it NOLA. And, the car performed all weekend, flawlessly. And Brian come up to me with the other Brian, the cool Brian, it's an inside joke, Brian Finelli, called Crayons. And he said, hey, we're looking for a general manager of the organization. He said, you interested? I was like, no.
God, no.
And he's like,
responsibilities? No.
Right. And he's like, come on, man, it'd be fun. I was like, well, what do I got to do?
For who?
Right, exactly. right. He said,
all I heard was promoter had peers with no money.
Right. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he goes, same thing you're already doing. I was like, but I'm really not doing anything. He goes, well, just keep doing that.
You're doing great already.
And I was like, okay. So Wild Boar came back home with me, and that's where we're at. And from there, where we've grown. The organization has grown tremendously. I don't even know where to start. It's just.
What it sounds like you found is community, and that's something that we talk about a lot here on the American Grit podcast, is how people find their community.
Yeah, that's hitting the nail on the head right there, because I never thought in a million years I'd be this in the organization, or the organization would be what it is today, and that's exactly what happened. Was just, they were like, just do whatever, and then my whatever turned into pushing my dirt car out off the lift in my shop, saying, okay, let's get this ready for these other guys. And man, I just had a blast watching these other guys do this, and I was like, man, this is cool. And then my kid helps, and I was like, okay, anytime you can get your kid in the shop to come to work,
you're doing something right.
That's a win.
Yeah.
And then he brings all his friends over. All his little teenage friends come over. Hey, Mr. Daniel, can you fix this? Can you fix that? Sure. And a lot of times I don't even fix it. They fix it.
Yeah.
So I got an AC problem on my 4Runner right now.
Yeah,
you got
sorry.
time after this podcast.
Oh, that ain't a race car.
All right. Say it. Speaking of, I want to talk about something real quick. So at the event, you guys you're saying race cars.
Okay.
Right? For those who don't know what a lemon is, one, it's one of those things. If you don't know what a lemon is, it's one of those tell me how you didn't serve, because everyone knows what lemons are in the military. How do you get a lemon to go 125 miles an hour?
I don't know.
And tell people what a lemon is.
I don't know that either. So we race in a few different categories. So the type of racing that we do at Battle Scarred is it's endurance racing, and basically you take a production car off the street, and you have to strip it. You have to put a roll cage in it, fire suppression system, and the different organizations that we run with. One of them is Lemons, Champ Car, and then my favorite is Lucky Dog. A huge shout out to Lucky Dog. Those guys just, man, in my personal experience, have just went above and beyond for BSM, Battle Scarred. And when I mean above and beyond, it's like, hey guys, can we help you guys do anything here? They shout out us at the racetrack, and just, they do great. And so what they do, all these different organizations, is you put a car together to their rules of safety, right? And then they'll judge the car on a class of what that car needs to be in that class. So where basically you don't have a Corvette running with a bunch of Mazda Miatas in the same class. Now, you'll get that. You'll get Corvettes, Miatas, Mustangs, Crown Vics all on the racetrack together, but they won't be in the same class. So you may have 30 to 50 cars competing on this racetrack. So that's kind of where this adrenaline for BSM comes in, right? So we're going to take Brandon, for instance, and we're going to be like, hey, bro, what's up? And they're like, these guys are church mice when they show up. When you get a brand new guy, it's such an awesome experience. And, they'll show up Thursday night. They'll help with, setting the tents up. Some of them don't, which it's not a big deal. Fridays, we'll kind of do the safety stuff. We'll teach these guys, what's going on. We'll assign them a car. We'll put them in a car captain, whatever. And so these guys will be on a 4 to 6 man team. So, they're back into serving again, like, they were in the military. And, we're going to eat all weekend together. Like, we're going to cook, we're going to grill, we're going to have a good time. Well, we also rent RVs. Like, we go on this like app called like Outdoorsy, and we're like, wherever we're at, we'll pre-order these RVs, and they'll be sitting there like little campers. So we're gonna house these veterans together and first responders. So whatever car team you're on, like that's your group all weekend. So like you're bonding all weekend. You're finding that purpose again, and we call it reacclimating back to life because you're putting them back in an environment that they're used to. Of serving, of doing more stuff. And like I said, they show up like church mice. And then like my favorite day is Saturday. Because, they've kind of been together for a little bit Thursday night. They've been together Friday most of the day. But they've raced all day Friday, which means they've pitted the car. They've refueled the car. If anything's broke, they've all worked on the car. They've been on fuel runs because the car ran out of fuel. You got to go to the store and get fuel. And so all these different movements are happening, so to speak. But they're all doing it together in that 4 to 6 man and woman team. So they're all together. And then Saturday, like, we'll have the grill out, we're cooking whatever. And we have this big, like, 10 by 30 tent that it's supposed to be for the cars, but it all starts off, like, it all ends up as, like when you were in the Marine Corps, the school circle quarterdeck, this big circle of chairs just pop up. And you're talking to this guy about this guy's talking to this guy about that, and it just happens so organically. Nobody forced it, and before you know it, this guy's in this guy's wedding. This guy's now the godfather to this kid's kid, and it just keeps rolling into it. And our family, we call it a family at BSM, it just gets bigger and bigger. So that's kind of like in a nutshell of what BSM is.
Do people like to come back for the camaraderie, or they're like, man, I need this. Like, obviously the racing is part of it. The throttle therapy is part of it, but you're talking about camaraderie.
Correct. We have guys that have been with us since the very beginning that make almost every event. Like, they don't want to miss. And sometimes, and not to be rude, you have to tell them, hey, we're not going to race this weekend. Meaning, like, we're going to race, but you're not going to race this weekend. You're going to volunteer because we have new guys coming that need to participate. So that's kind of been the new thing lately, is that some of the older OGs are still coming, which we want, which we're a family with these guys, but we also need to make space for these new kids. I call them kids. I'm sorry, they're grown ass men. That these new guys can participate as this as well, because think about it, with new blood becomes a whole new more opportunities, and it just helps the organization as far as grow to more people to do it.
And your OGs kind of move into like a coaching role.
Correct. So one of the things that we just done, because honestly, as this is going along, we're collecting data, we're watching where we're screwing up at, and some of these people are actually harming, like I wouldn't say harming, but they're dangerous to themselves because they've never done this, right? So one of the newest policies that we've done is we're not just going to let you come race the very first time you come. We're going to ask you to volunteer for 2 events. And in that volunteer, whether it be fuel runs, whether it be ice runs, water runs, cooking, we're also going to put you in the team side of it with the car, to where we can show you how to properly pit stop the car with the refueling service, because that's where a lot of problems happen, and that's when you get a lot of safety violations with the organization, like Lemon's Champ Car or Lucky Dog. Well, they'll stop you, and then they'll park you for 30 or 40 minutes like a little kid and say, hey, go think about what you've done. And so when you're racing, like, to me, like, I'm so competitive, I want to win, right? So like that just irritates me when you put me in the corner to stop for a second. So we came back around full circle to look at it of like, hey, where did we not give these guys the best experience? And sometimes the problem was we just didn't do a good enough job of training. So it's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to volunteer 2 weekends first. And we're going to teach you how to do this safely, fastly, to where we're not getting penalized later. And then when it comes to the 3rd weekend for you to come race, you're fully aware of exactly what's going on. The clock just ticks in the right direction the first time, so.
I mean, you got to walk before you can run. It would be pretty scary to be like, hey, come on down and, jump in and Ricky Bobby this thing.
Well, so like.
That's good to hear that there's safety precautions.
Correct.
You got to earn your way up there.
So like one of the Marines that I served with, I love this kid to death, and I'm not even going to share his name because I didn't talk to him about this. But he flew in. He's continuing his service. He's a police officer, and he said, "This is what really made me think about this." He goes, "Which way do I go?" And like I went, "What?" Like there's only one way, but he had never done this, so it's like he didn't know. So it was kind of like, when we were having the board meeting, I was like, "Hey, the question was asked, which way do I go?" I said that opens up a whole can of worms of, hey, we need to like really rethink what we're doing here.
Yeah, I love there's a lot of resilience, it sounds like. I mean, that's important now more than ever, especially like with vets. I feel like we do these intervals. Like, you go for a run or when you work out, you do these intervals and you're proud of it, right? But people live life that way, where these intervals are just so extreme. You get cut off and it's like, rah! And it's like massive extremes. Like, what do you do when something really happens?
Right, exactly.
What are you doing to learn from the wave that is life? And how do you keep it centered? Because that center is resilience. And that's where you're going to, find success versus, oh my God, and then there's extremes. And like it's not a way to live. So like my question for you is like, how do veterans or racers get through challenges at BSM?
I say simple because we deal with it a lot, and it's just we do it with you. So it's like, if we see you struggling, or if you're struggling, like it's kind of like that private, like, hey, which way did this bullet go? Let me show you. And it's just, we kind of call it, we do life with you guys, because it's like we're not just racing. And we don't just race and then we don't ever call you. Like, I blow everybody's phone up. Like, especially if I got to move.
You were blowing my phone up yesterday in the group chat.
Well, this morning at 5.
Wake up.
Time to us show up.
Right.
Not right now.
I went to my phone.
Yeah, so exactly. So I do that to all the guys that come race with us, and I'm interested in what are you doing in life. I'm not interested. Like, I am interested if you want to come back. I am very interested in that. But I'm also interested of, man, are you plugged into the VA healthcare system? Like, you can have your disagreements with it all you want, but if you can learn how to navigate it, like, you can see some civilian doctors, dude. You don't have to go to the VA.
Not only that, like, once you figure out, how to navigate it, you can help others and be a force multiplier instead of being the issue. Like, you're not going to fucking change shit with that attitude.
That's correct. Well, I mean, I can tell you specifically one kid in particularly that we helped. This dude was, 10, 12 years out the Marine Corps, combat veteran. Dude, the very first time he got a disability rating, he got 100% disability rating. And he got a 6-figure check. And he wasn't even working. Like, he was bumming it, living it here to there, damn near homeless if he didn't have family, and, being able to get the help he needed first, getting plugged into the system and seeing a doctor and going the route that he went, a few months, I'd say about 6-8 months later, he gets a disability decision rating of 100%. Dude, he paid cash for a house. Yeah. He ain't living with his mom no more. And, man, it kind of walks into another topic that I want to tell you guys about Battle Scarred. I can tell you story after story of these kids that came, because they're grown-ass men. I keep saying kids. These grown-ass men that come that ain't doing shit with their life. They're just not doing anything. And then all of a sudden, they start hanging out. They start participating. Dude, they're working. They're marrying childhood sweethearts. They're having kids. They weren't doing all that stuff prior. And I'm not saying that, we're the cure-all, because we're not. I'm just saying that, forever, everybody wants to talk about awareness. Oh, man, we need to make awareness of PTSD. Bro, we're past that stage.
Yeah, everybody knows.
Yeah, we know we're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I know you're batshit crazy. But you know what? Can I use you somewhere? Like, can we put you somewhere to make you productive?
How do we prevent these issues from getting worse in our community and, ultimately eliminate veteran suicide?
Yeah. It's the same as you guys as well. Having these podcasts and, having the support that you guys have given Battle Scarred to do this as well. Because, man, it takes everybody. Like, you can't do this. That's why it's a team. You can't do it by yourself,
Yeah, we always tell vets, you never accomplished anything alone overseas. Why are you trying to do that now?
Right, exactly.
Like, what
great
did you
point.
do that was successful by yourself? Like, and if you're watching this, guys, like what we're getting at is the power of just being involved, not involved with something that's for you and something bigger than yourself. Like that could be racing, that could be walking with nature, that could be spirituality, it can be something, but you need to be part of something that's bigger than you, so you can be a belonging. Like you said, find entities where they can plug you in for areas that benefit you versus, positions like you had before BSM that would just take advantage of you and there was no passion. That person's not going to show up to work for you. They're not going to show up for the team.
Right.
Versus they know their place on your team. They know they have to do their part, and they're going to do their fucking job because the person to the left and right
Absolutely.
needs to.
And look, I say this all the time because I talk to so many people about what we do, and my wife's uncle is one of the greatest examples. He's 78, Vietnam veteran. He's not interested in getting in the car. He's not interested in adrenaline therapy. He likes to talk, though. Come to the racetrack.
Hold that light, thanks.
Come to the racetrack. You can go get gas, huh? You got a truck? Take some of them crazy veterans over here with us. And before you know it, he's exhausted because he's been talking all day to these guys. That's a service. Straight up. You ain't got to be. And then my favorite. Well, I'm missing my legs. I'm glad you said that. I got a car you can drive. What hand controls in it? You got hand controls in your personal car, huh? Yep. Here you go. Hop in Rosie. And now you got veterans that...
Did you say hopping ready?
No, hop in Rosie.
Oh, that's just a hopping ready. I was like, that's fucking funny.
That too. That too. So like, we have this really cool car that is, we have this chick named Kara that I love her to death, Air Force veteran. She has her legs, but, she went through a condition and had an operation through the military that, caused her to not have the use of that anymore. And super badass chick. I mean, this girl does it all. And, she come up racing and, working with the Hands-On Driving Academy in Houston. And we were like, hey, we like you. And we're going to build this car. And we built this car. And we're like, every one of these cars has a name and has a number on it, right? And so she named the car Rosie, from Rosie to Riveter in World War II when all the women took over because all the men were fighting. Mm-hmm. And she leads this car. And it's kind of cool car. It's a Crown Vic. It's a cop car that the police department gave us. And it's got the same hand controls that her personal car's got in it. So she's very familiar with the car. So you got her, and we've had 3 or 4 other guys that, were amputees that drove this car. So, we're not just serving we're serving everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't matter what your skill level
Nope.
is, what your physical disabilities
Nope.
I love shit like that. I love shit like that. You have no excuse, buddy. No excuse. Other than us, we'll be there at 11, not 7. Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something, and I observe a lot at the racetrack because I'm always looking to see what are we doing wrong. And we're not doing a lot wrong. We're doing a lot right. But I'm always how can I make this a better experience for these guys? So the hand control car, Rosie, is very near and dear to me. Like it's housed in the Louisiana chapter shop, with the other 2 cars, and it's very special to me. But I have watched these guys work on this car. They outwork everybody. Like I have pictures on my phone that I can show you of these guys laying underneath this car, the car on jack stands, and they are like changing the rear end of this car. Like these guys work. So it's like, man, when some of these other guys, like, when you're talking to them and, I don't really know if I can. And I'm like, bro, just come out. You're going to find some motivation because you're going to see some of these other veterans that, not to point the finger, but, we're all messed up a little bit somewhere, but everybody's here and there's a space for everybody. And I find there's motivation in that, man, because it's like you show up and you start working and then you start seeing some of these other guys with disabilities that I don't have that are just really getting it. And you're like, man, that motivates me to do even harder, so.
What would you say the goals of the organization are? Kind of round this out a little bit. Like, what are you guys looking to? What's the goal?
Okay, so obviously, our mission statement is for active duty veterans, first responders, civilians, to give them a safe place to bond, find purpose, while reacclimating back to civilian life. So that's the goal, is we want everybody to have a safe space. We want you to bond, which seems to come very naturally. And then let's get you reacclimated. So like we do allow civilians to hold some of these seats, because think about it. You're out the Marine Corps, you're struggling. This guy's doing pretty good in life. Y'all are on this team all week. Man, you start talking to this guy. Next thing you know, you got his phone number. That y'all are mentoring each other now. And it's like, that's the goal here, is to do life with someone other than yourself, because we all know what happens when we do life by ourselves.
We all have so much more in common than we do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So where can we find information about BSM, and what do you have coming up in the pipeline so people can be aware of it?
So obviously our website, battlescarred.org. Everything is on our website. Like, you can click on the schedule, you can click on the volunteer. I want to volunteer. I want to race. You can donate. You can watch our TV show that the fixers from BYU TV did, where they came in our shop in Mandeville and totally gave us this workspace where we have a lift. And not only do we have a lift, we have a tire machine and a wheel balancer. And then they were so awesome to put a handicap lift in it, because the space is only like 1,600 square foot. So they put a handicap lift in it to where even the handicap guys can get upstairs and work on the tire machine and stuff like that. And so we have this whole shop that people can come to in Mandeville. It's on the website, the address. And then like our schedule is on there. It's the rest of the year is already up. Like I said, this weekend we're in San Marcos racing at Harris Hill. November, we're going to race MSR Houston, and then in December, we're going to race Road Atlanta. So that's going to finish out the year. And then I want to say, I know March is always one of our biggest races of the year, because that's the race in NOLA, and a lot of us are closest to the NOLA racetrack. So we try to throw a really big, family party type deal at NOLA to where everybody's there, and then obviously, I like to eat. All my Cajun friends come, and you got one dude bowling crawfish over here, one dude cooking a jambalaya, one dude smoking ribs. So you come to NOLA, you're gonna get the full treatment.
It's an 8-hour drive. I've done it a few times.
Yeah, we did it last year.
It's an hour-and-a-half flight. Sure.
Can we drive? We'll talk about it offline.
Absolutely. So
hey, I had a random thought. Like,
yes.
I don't know if you have nicknames for like yourself or your cars, but Blazing Cajun came out when you were talking about being from Louisiana.
No, I'm just Daniel.
Just Dan. I was like, oh, you're a Blazing Cajun.
I'm gonna call someone.
Well, we're gonna be late, so we'll start with that.
Yeah, we'll call. Can't show up. Can't get right. Can't get right.
Well, I mean, as a vet, thanks for doing this, man. This is great. Like, we love, especially on this program, we bring adaptive therapies all the time.
Yeah.
And if you go to all of our episodes, we're just trying to create a toolbox. Like, hey, I want to get into racing, horse racing. I want to get into beekeeping. I want to get into whatever. Just be involved with something bigger than yourself. Because again, if you didn't do shit if you did shit by yourself in the military, you're either a really high-ranking officer, and you probably don't need anything because you're fucking well off, right?
Right.
Degrees got you farther than we did, but that's okay, man.
Well, nothing, like we say it all the time, nothing good happens inside the four walls of your house.
That's correct.
Get out.
Yeah, if you got a need for speed, check out battlescarred.org, man.
Yeah, and another thing is, we're also kid-friendly. Like, we all have kids. So, like, all of our kids are growing up at the racetrack, and like Chuck's got a 4-year-old all the way to a 16-year-old. I have a 15 and 17-year-old, and some of the guys that I had mentioned earlier that are having families, like one kid in particularly, he's a grown man. Sorry,
Young
Alex.
man.
Sorry, Alex. He he has a 2-year-old son, and they just had twin girls. So it's like, man, our family's growing. So like, if you're coming out and you're saying, man, I really don't want to come because I have kids. Man, bring them kids. Like, trust me, this is a family environment. Like, we're gonna have some fun. We have RVs, so like, if the kids need to go to nap time or time out, we can put them. We can accommodate anything. But more importantly, we call it adrenaline therapy, and the research behind it is proven that putting this in with some positive memories the brain will start rewriting positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. So I know it's working for myself. I know it's working for a lot of the veterans that we're serving, and we're always looking to grow, and we're very welcoming for anybody that wants to come and participate and just see what we're like and join our family of a family.
Thanks, man. Well, that'll be it for us, guys. This has been another episode of American Grit. Be sure to check out our episodes on AmericanGrit.com. We would appreciate a like, share, subscribe, follow on YouTube, follow us on social media. But if I end with anything, guys, please get involved. And until next time, we'll see you guys on the next one. Stay safe.